What if I told you that one of the biggest lies you've ever believed about yourself isn't something another person told you? It's something you've repeated to yourself for years. I'm just lazy. Maybe you've whispered those words after sleeping through your alarm again. Maybe you said them while staring at a to-do list you couldn't bring yourself to start. Maybe you've watched everyone else seem to move forward while you stayed stuck, and the only explanation that made sense was, there must be something wrong with me. Society has a simple answer for people who struggle to take action. It calls them lazy. Work harder, wake up earlier, stop making excuses. Push yourself. But what if that's not the real problem? What if you've spent years trying to solve the wrong problem? Imagine taking medicine for a headache when the real issue is dehydration. The medicine might dull the pain for a while, but it never fixes the cause. That's exactly how many people treat what they call laziness. They attack themselves with guilt, shame, and endless motivational videos, hoping they'll suddenly become disciplined. Sometimes it works for a day, maybe even a week. But eventually, they end up right back where they started, wondering why nothing ever changes. Why? Because you can't solve a problem correctly if you've diagnosed it incorrectly. Here's something fascinating about the human brain. Your brain is not designed to make you successful, it's designed to keep you alive. Those are two very different goals. Success often requires risk. Growth requires uncertainty. Love requires vulnerability. Purpose requires sacrifice. But survival? Survival prefers familiarity. It prefers comfort. It prefers conserving energy whenever possible. Thousands of years ago, conserving energy increased the chances of staying alive. Food wasn't guaranteed, safety wasn't guaranteed. Every unnecessary effort could cost your ancestors their lives. That ancient wiring still exists inside your brain today. The problem is, your brain often reacts to emotional danger the same way it once reacted to physical danger. It doesn't always know the difference between standing in front of a hungry lion and standing in front of a difficult conversation, a challenging project, or the possibility of failing. To your nervous system, both can feel threatening, and when your brain senses a threat, it has several ways to protect you. Sometimes it tells you to fight. Sometimes it tells you to run away. Sometimes it tells you to freeze. That freeze response is something most people never talk about. Imagine pressing the gas pedal and the brake pedal at the same time. The engine roars, fuel is burning, but the car barely moves. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. But inside, tremendous energy is being wasted. That's what many people call laziness. You're not doing nothing because you don't care. You're doing nothing because part of your mind is desperately trying to move forward while another part is desperately trying to keep you safe. That's exhausting. Think about the last time you procrastinated. Did you spend those hours feeling peaceful? Probably not. You likely felt guilty the entire time. You kept thinking about what you should be doing. You promised yourself you'd start in 5 minutes, then another 5, then tomorrow. That's not the behavior of someone who doesn't care. That's the behavior of someone trapped in an invisible conflict. Truly lazy people don't usually lose sleep over not getting things done. They don't constantly criticize themselves for falling behind. They don't search for answers because they're terrified they're wasting their lives. If you're watching this video, there's a good chance you've done exactly that. Which means, maybe, just maybe, laziness isn't your real problem. So, what is? Sometimes it's burnout. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack every single day. At first, it's manageable. Then someone quietly adds, another stone. Financial stress, another stone. Family responsibilities, another stone. Anxiety, another stone. Unanswered prayers, another stone. Perfectionism, another stone. Before long, you're carrying so much weight that even taking one more step feels impossible. Then someone walks by, sees you sitting on the ground, and says, you're lazy. They never notice the backpack. Burnout doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like scrolling your phone for hours because your brain has nothing left to give. Sometimes it looks like sleeping more but waking up just as tired. Sometimes it looks like staring at a simple task and feeling strangely overwhelmed. Another hidden reason people mistake themselves for being lazy is fear. Not loud fear, quiet fear. The kind that whispers instead of shouts. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if I try my hardest and still disappoint everyone? Here's the strange thing about fear. It often disguises itself as procrastination. If you never start, you never have to discover what might happen. Your brain convinces you that staying still feels safer than risking failure. But safety has a cost. Every day you avoid the challenge, your confidence quietly shrinks. Then there's perfectionism, the most socially acceptable form of fear. Perfectionists rarely think of themselves as perfectionists. They simply believe they're waiting for the perfect time, the perfect plan, or the perfect version of themselves. But perfect never arrives, so they wait, and wait, and wait. Eventually, people call them lazy. They start believing it too. But perfectionism isn't laziness. It's fear wearing a very convincing disguise. And perhaps the most overlooked cause of all is something many people never consider. You've been running on empty for so long that your soul is simply exhausted. Not because you're weak, not because you're incapable, but because no human being was created to carry endless pressure without rest. Long before modern psychology began studying stress, the Bible recognized something our culture often forgets. Human beings have limits. Even machines overheat when they run non-stop. Why are we so surprised when people do? One of the most powerful stories in the Bible isn't about someone working harder. It's about someone who couldn't keep going anymore. After Elijah experienced one of the greatest victories of his life on Mount Carmel, you might expect him to feel unstoppable. Instead, he ran into the wilderness, sat beneath a tree, and prayed that he would die. Think about that. One of God's greatest prophets reached a point where he had nothing left. If we judged Elijah the way we often judge ourselves, we'd probably call him weak, lazy, or faithless. But God didn't. God didn't begin with a lecture. He didn't say, "Elijah, try harder." He didn't shame him for being exhausted. Instead, he let Elijah sleep. Then he gave him food. Then he gave him water. Only after meeting Elijah's physical needs did God begin speaking to his heart. That detail matters more than most people realize. Sometimes, the holiest thing you can do isn't work harder, it's recover. We live in a culture that glorifies constant productivity. If you're always busy, people assume you're successful. If you're resting, they assume you're falling behind. But Jesus never measured a person's worth by how exhausted they were. In fact, he often walked away from the crowds. He rested, he prayed, he slept in a boat during a storm, while everyone else panicked. Rest wasn't a reward after finishing the mission, rest was part of the mission. So how do you know whether you're dealing with laziness or something deeper? Ask yourself a simple question. If fear disappeared, if shame disappeared, if exhaustion disappeared, would I still want to move forward? If your answer is yes, then motivation isn't your real problem. Something underneath it is. The good news is that what hides beneath the surface can be healed. The first step is to stop attacking yourself. Imagine trying to help a frightened child. You wouldn't scream at them until they felt safe. Yet that's exactly what many of us do to ourselves. Every mistake becomes another insult. Every unfinished task becomes another reason to believe we're failures. Shame may push you for a moment, but it can never sustain lasting change. Compassion can. The second step is to make your next step ridiculously small. Your brain doesn't need proof that you can finish everything today. It needs proof that you can begin. Read one page instead of an entire chapter. Walk for 5 minutes instead of promising yourself an hour at the gym. Write one paragraph instead of finishing the whole project. Momentum is built one small decision at a time. The third step is to stop waiting until you feel motivated. Motivation is a terrible leader because it comes and goes like the weather. Discipline grows after action, not before it. Most people think successful people act because they feel motivated. More often, they feel motivated because they acted. Movement creates momentum. The fourth step is to protect your mind from constant dopamine overload. Every endless scroll, every short video, every notification teaches your brain to expect instant rewards. Then real life feels unbearably slow. Deep work, prayer, reading, building relationships. These things grow quietly over time, but they're the things that actually change your life. Finally, remember where your identity comes from. The world says your value depends on what you produce. God says your value was settled long before you produced anything, before you achieved success, before you failed, before you proved yourself.
You were loved because you were created in His image. That doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you stop believing your worth rises and falls with your performance. Imagine waking up tomorrow and, instead of calling yourself lazy, becoming curious. Instead of saying, "What's wrong with me?" asking, "What is my mind trying to protect me from?" Imagine replacing shame with understanding, replacing self-hatred with truth, replacing endless pressure with purposeful progress. That single shift can change everything, because the person who understands the real problem finally has the chance to heal the real problem. And maybe that's what you needed to hear today. You're not broken, you're not hopeless, and maybe you're not lazy either. Maybe you're carrying burdens no one else can see. Maybe your nervous system has been fighting battles your body never chose. Maybe your heart has been exhausted for far longer than anyone realizes. But healing is possible. Not overnight, not with one motivational speech, but one honest step at a time. One courageous choice at a time. One surrendered prayer at a time. So before you call yourself lazy ever again, remember this: a tree doesn't produce fruit by trying harder. It produces fruit because it's healthy at the roots. Your life works the same way. Don't spend your whole life painting dead leaves green. Heal the roots, and the fruit will follow. If this message encouraged you, I'd love to ask you one question. When you struggle to get started, what do you think is really holding you back? Fear, exhaustion, distraction, or something else? Leave just one word in the comments. Your answer may help someone else realize they're not fighting this battle alone. And if you enjoy videos that combine psychology, everyday life, and timeless biblical wisdom, consider subscribing. Until next time, remember this simple truth. The goal isn't to become someone who never gets tired. The goal is to stop confusing exhaustion with laziness, and to let God heal what shame has been trying to hide.